think all of us here are perfectionists. It's kind of a trap. But it's also the only way I know how to live. And I know perfection is not attainable, but you always try to get there. You're always trying to do it better, to do it right.
People have all kinds of things that they've said about Memphis, but these are the realities. The core part of music for this country, which has impacted the world, came right out of this immediate area. When you consider the foundation of what blues music was, and the fact that individuals who were so important to the establishing of that credibility came to Memphis in order to launch that.
I am a proud Memphian. I like the people here. I've lived elsewhere briefly for periods of short years. I always seem to come back. It's the rubber band effect of Memphis. Everyone who moves comes back.
My father owned a music store. When I was in 4th grade, I'd gotten in trouble, and I got taken to the office. And the teacher said, "What do you think you're gonna do?" "I'm going to work in my father's music store." And I was serious. Everything was always going to work in Dad's shop. What better place to make and sell guitars than the birthplace of rock and roll?
I was already into music and guitars, particularly before I came here. I tried everything, you know, sax, piano, pedal steel, you know, you name it. I had tried it all, but guitar was the thing.
Now, the ash, the mahogany, we also use alder, and then we use maple for the necks. And I source all that local wood shop, because most of this will only cost less than $10 a foot.
My aha moment for me was when I was watching, it may sound silly, but it was Hot for Teacher. Watching Eddie Van Halen play that guitar, walking out of the table, do that solo, it's like, I want to play guitar. I just got into it, and then started building on my own guitars when I was like 13 or 14.
I guess when I was 14 or 15, my dad bought me my first real guitar. And it was an off-brand, you know, cheap beginner package with a guitar and an amp, and it was all about 150 bucks or something. And so I started playing on that, and quickly, as I gained skill, I realized that this thing was totally inadequate. That's when I started doing the repair and tinkering with them too. I took it apart and put it back together, tried to figure out how to make it work better.
I played all sorts of guitars and got to learn about the woods, got to learn how they built them. Would go and visit distributors and go to trade shows and actually, you know, how are you building this? What are you know, what techniques? And watching it change, watching the tools change, and some of the mindsets, and kind of learning why there are certain things that everybody does. And I learned some of those little tricks that they did to lower the price of their guitars without changing much. Big thing was automation. A lot of automation. Everything over there is automated, not hand done. So I kind of take all that knowledge. When I come here, we need to outsource some stuff. We've got to be more hands-on. The bodies are actually made out of multiple pieces of wood that have to be glued together to make what we call a blank. And the blank is what you cut out. And depending on what I put together, basically I create the personality of the guitar, but not its individual traits. In other words, by putting different electronics in, we can modify the sound, but the basic general overall sound is created from this. Like this is mahogany with redwood, and so it's going to be more of a mellower sound, whereas if I use like ash or maple, it'll be much brighter. If I use a rosewood, it's going to be much bassier.
Myself and a friend who was one of the few really good guitar players in town, and his father had quite a bit of money. He put his son in business with a music store. We were both of the same mind that just because a guitar came out of a factory, you know, it didn't mean that it was right. So we started doing things to him. Jimmy Page came in and was just absolutely knocked out by these factory guitars that we had customized. And he said, nobody else is doing this.
I always knew TK. I'm a Memphian. Of course I knew who TK was. TK was friends with Larry, the guy that taught me. There was this small group that formed all of it. I remember St. Blues getting started and, you know, the whole thing snowballing and getting cool and making the guitars for famous people. What changed really was when he went to Schecter, he came back knowing how to build a guitar, really build a guitar, what it took. I would say that was the entire reason why St. Blues succeeded. That's wrong direction. Holes have to face that way. Lining up the template so that when it gets on the machine, it's in the correct orientation.
I started at St. Blues in 1984 when I came back from working in California for Schecter. And we lasted the first time around till 1989. We were out of business. Then in 2006, a venture capitalist, not a player, not a musician, unfortunately, and so he bought the trademark, decided he was going to make St. Blues guitars. Within a few years, he basically made just about every mistake he could possibly make. He finally ran out of money, or was not going to put any more money in it, and he made a deal, if you will, with the guys that were left, the actual craftsmen, the people he should have been listening to in the first place.
Used to be like everybody. You'd have parts built, and you would assemble them. And the parts could be either made here or overseas. Now we're really something different because we're in control of all the details.
In August of 2011, after we remodeled this whole building, we opened back up as strictly made here in the U.S. And that's the way we've been doing it ever since. I have personally built a little over 300 of the guitars that we've shipped out of here. Out of those 300, they're all 300 individual guitars because they all have their own unique personality. And that's what I love about it. A lot of guys are using preformed stuff because it makes it a lot easier, but I don't like the sound of it. Bone's got a nice transference to it, so that's why I use it.
I can tell you, as somebody who knows how guitars are built, this one's built better. There are all sorts of little details throughout the whole instrument that make a better and superior instrument. The trick, as the manufacturer, is can you make it twice, and can you make it for the right price?
Mostly what I do is raw necks, and I'll sand them, shape them, polish them, finish them, put the frets on, and then finish out those frets and get a neck that I would be willing to take home and play myself. If it passes my test, then it should be good enough for anybody.
So how do you want your guitar set up? What do you want it to do? What do you tell me? And people love that.
I think the future's bright. I hope it is. Just keep doing what we're doing and not try to change things or shake things up just for the sake of change. We don't ever want to get into a production situation where we're making too many guitars and, sending substandard things out the door. Quality is everything in this kind of business, in this kind of world.
If you make a great product and you make it the way you make it and don't try to fit in everywhere else, people will buy your product because it's not like everybody else.
We ship several dozens of cigar boxes every few months to Germany to a distributor called Thomann over there, and they distribute for all of Europe. And I wonder who's playing them over there. Is it a kid? Is it an adult that's already been playing? Is this going to get someone started down this path? And is it going to give them happiness? Is it going to make their life better in some way? I sure hope it does.